What's up? Welcome to another episode of Don't Shit on the Bus. Joining me all the way from Winter Park, Florida, Neil Westfall.
That's me.
How's it going?
Hi. I'm fucking fantastic. Absolutely amazing.
Well, I look forward to catching up with you, but quick, let's tell everyone who we have on the show this week. We've got the wonderful Mark Bubb, and Mark works /owns/ he does something really high up, and I hope he doesn't get offended for me not remembering his actual title, but he's high up at a merch company called Killer Merch.
Full badass.
Yeah, he went full badass.
Just a full fucking does all. Can do anything. Mark Bubb.
Yeah, and Mark, Neil, and I have known for a very long time. Mark was actually the head of my street team for Victory Records back in 2006 when I started in the music industry. And Neil, how'd you meet him? I know we go over it in depth in the podcast, but tell everybody how you know Mark.
He came to our first showcase at Victory Records. And so he was one of the people standing in the back of the room with the lights off, with, you know, everyone from Victory judging us, watching us play for them and try to like impress them when we first started. So, I mean, probably 2005 or 6 or something like that, 2006, I think. And then he took us out for drinks once we signed to Victory Records and kind of started us on our awesome relationship with Victory for getting in trouble for hanging out with Black Dahlia Murder. So that's how we became good friends.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I think this episode, what really stuck out to me was Mark just has a lot of good knowledge because he's been through the industry and he's toured, but at the same time, he's maintained a position which is more office-based in some of his jobs, which is definitely a viable path to either getting on the road or becoming part of the music industry. And in this episode specifically, we talk about how this pertains to the merchandise world and what merch looks like in 2021.
And I mean, I think one of the cool things about it is you don't always have to be working with a touring musician. You know, like in the merch game, you can be working with an influencer, you can be working with a comedian, you can be working with a YouTuber, you can be working with a cosmetic beauty phenomenon, you know? And Mark kind of talks about doing all of those things. He goes in depth on what it takes to kind of run this company and all the different avenues of success that exist in the merchandising world. So it's really insightful, really fucking cool podcast. Honestly, it was awesome catching up with Mark and kind of seeing where life has taken him these days after working for Victory and a couple other places in between. So, yeah.
Yeah, he worked for Victory. I think he worked for Atticus, a company called Jedediah, kind of jumped around, toured a bit. And like Neil said, it was really nice catching up to him. And I think something to take away from this is that the people you meet, for example, for me doing a street team or Neil getting his band signed, the people you meet at the beginning of your career, if they're in the music industry, they're probably here for a while and you'll see them jump around to other jobs. So, you know, it all goes back to networking of just make sure you keep in touch with these people because everybody's on their own path and you might, you know, I don't know how long it's been since you've had an hour-long conversation with Mark, but it's been years for me. But catching up with him felt like such a normal, organic, not forced thing to do. And I enjoyed it.
Well, it's kind of how it is in this industry too. It's like you go forever without seeing people. And then when you see people, you only get such a limited time with them. So you have to kind of go right back into normal life. You want to take advantage of that time with them. And so that happens a lot. And one of the other cool things about keeping in touch and not burning bridges is, look at this. Like we were able to call Mark out of the blue, be like, hey man, we'd like to have you as a guest on our podcast. What do you think? And he just was like, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that.
Yeah.
And it's because there's no bad blood ever. It doesn't matter if you don't talk to someone for years. There's always opportunities down the road, and it's always going to be important to keep those relationships healthy.
Who don't hit us back. And that's normal too.
Yeah.
So when people don't hit you back, and that's not me calling out them or saying anything negative about them, that is just how it goes. And you know, if they do hit me up in the future, I'm not going to hold against them. They're probably just busy. And I don't take it personally.
Probably going to kiss them on the face.
Kiss them on the mouth.
On their mouth.
Oh, jinx? I think.
Yeah,
cool. Okay, Neil, can I tell you something that I'm really proud of today?
Yeah, please.
Okay, you know what C4 is, right?
Like the explosive?
No, kind of. It's a workout supplement thing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I hadn't done it in like 7 years, and I got some last night. I was like, I talked to my friend who's been doing Ironmans, which I know you kind of dabbled in, if not did one. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I just did a triathlon, no Ironman.
Okay, but similar concept, right? Train really hard, do 3 things. They're not the easiest thing. You can't just do them. But after talking to my friend and thinking about you, I was like, all right, I'm going to do some pre-work. I did half a scoop of C4 this morning, and I decided to push myself for as far as I could run. And keep in mind, my max distance I've been able to run in the past year is about a mile or 2. Guess how far I went today?
Okay. 7 miles.
10.24.
Holy shit. I tried to like guess a lot, but like not too much so that it was still really nice when you said it,
Thanks. I appreciate that. I was wondering as you answered what went through your head prior to you saying it. I was like, he doesn't want to say 15 because then I'm going to come up under and he's going to feel bad. So you did a good job of making me still feel.
I don't know why my immediate reaction was like 73. And I'm like, that's unrealistic, even by like the craziest marathon run. I was like, okay, rein it back in. So I was like, all right, 7.
Hey, well, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was a fun little practice of mental, and I don't know. I'm exhausted right now, but it felt great.
A lot of that shit is mental.
It's crazy.
I mean, your body can do it. Like you save, like your body thinks you have to save all these reserves of energy for living and, whatever. So you really only, things. I think it's like 40% is like what your brain allows your body to utilize energy wise. And there's like this 60% reserve kind of like existing in there. It's like if you use 100, you're obviously dead, whatever. But so like, I think a lot of people like go and do it and it's really hard for them to get into exercising again because their body's like, nah, you can't do it. But then if you just push through that mental, you can fucking surprise yourself. One of the things I've been doing is Mary and I started doing this thing called Hard 75. Have you heard of this?
No, but it sounds nutritional.
I think that it'd be really cool, and I don't know if you would be down to do it, but it'd be fun if we could like be like podcast, hold each other accountable, Hard 75. We're like gonna be like, let's do it. It's 75 days. You have to stick to whatever diet you choose. It doesn't matter. Like you could just be like, look, I'm not gonna eat fried food, or I'm not gonna eat out, or I'm gonna cook for myself, or I'm gonna do keto, or I'm gonna be vegan. Whatever you want to do, you set up your own diet. But it's 2 workouts a day of at least 45 minutes. One has to be outside. And then you have to drink a gallon of water a day, and you have to read 10 pages of a book every day for 75 days. And so it's not really that hard, but I mean, it can be hard because obviously doing something for 75 days in a row is
just developing habits is the key, right?
Yeah. And then the crazy thing about it too is if you mess up on like day 34, you have to start over. And so the only way you can complete Hard 75 is to do 75 days straight, 2 workouts a day, no skip on the diet, 1 gallon of water, 10 pages from a book. I've started over every single day. It's been today's day 5 of starting at day 1 for me.
Yeah. How long have you been doing Hard 75? Oh, just 6 years.
Yeah. I'm fucking in great shape and I've read a lot of books, but I just can't drink enough water. It's like
somebody misinterprets it. They're like read the same 10 pages of the book every day. They're like, I have these pages memorized.
I don't even read the book anymore. I can recite it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool. I don't know if you'd be up for it, but my thing that keeps getting me is the first day I forgot to read. And the second day, I did it. The third day, it was raining all day, so I didn't work out outside. Today, I'm gonna do it and then get to day 2. So that's what I'm doing.
I think that I could for me, it's never a matter of like, can I do it or can I not do it? It's does my life allow for me to set these goals reasonably? And I think they're reasonable. For me, it would probably be 2 45-minute workouts in a row, right? It would probably be, I don't know if that's allowed.
You can do that. That's what I do. I just do an hour and 30-minute bike ride, and it's outside, so that's winner. That's how I look at it. And if they don't think so, I'm going to be mediocre 75 instead of hard 75 because it's not exactly what they said. It's just like a little bit less hard.
Soft 75. My run was 2 hours and 4 minutes today.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So like that would have totally counts. All you got to do is just drink a gallon of water, read 10 pages, and then, I don't know, do some diet shit, whatever you choose.
It's funny you said that because before the podcast, I always think about things I want to tell you about. And the other thing I was going to tell you about is that I got a Camelback and I'm going to start wearing it around the house. So this works really well.
Drinking a gallon of water is really fucking hard.
Is it?
It's just harder than you think. I mean, like, it's harder than you think to do every day.
It's a conscious effort. It's not like a thing.
It's just a lot. You piss a lot is all I'm going to say. Like, that's the most annoying part is like how much you're like, God, I got to fucking piss. And it's like, all right, I'll drink this. I'll just chug this, whatever. I don't know. But yeah, that was the hardest part for me. And I got to figure out how to read. So that was the other thing.
Oh, you don't know how to read at all? This could be difficult, my friend.
I'm using picture books. They didn't say anything. I'm just getting through 10 pages of Amelia's picture books. And
Amelia Bedelia?
We have that book for her, yeah.
Oh, Amelia. I also forget that's your daughter's name.
Yes, it's a human that I created. It's their name.
You, okay, cool. Well, I apologize. I don't know why I went to Amelia
You haven't
Bedelia.
got to meet her yet. That's why.
Yeah, I need to get her in grade. I have like 7. I leave Florida for a year, not leave. I haven't visited Florida for a year, and everybody's multiplied.
Yeah,
by a
Jeremy's
factor
got
of like
2 now, and Alex is about to have 1. Josh has 1. I have 1, and Kevin's got some Doritos.
Are you talking about that picture from Minneapolis?
Yeah,
I knew exactly what you were talking about. I'll put
still
it on
has
the Patreon.
those same ones.
All right. All right. All right. Well, that is all our chit chat we've got for you today. Good catching up with you, Neil.
Yes.
Let's say, we do have a new patron.
Oh, what's their name?
Their name is Matt.
I thought it was going to be a girl, but I guess Matt could be a girl.
Yes. Matt could be a girl. We do not discriminate, and we are happy to have your support. So thank you so much. We will see you on the Discord.
Let's get it. This is Mark Bubb. He's fucking amazing. This is such an awesome conversation. A ton of great insight. Even if you're not into touring, he's just a fucking badass guy. So
Yeah,
awesome
let's do it.
Catching up with him. Here we go.
We figured we'd get into it by, first of all, saying welcome.
Yes, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'll be honest, other than some YouTube videos here and there, this is the first like official kind of pod I've done in years. So
Awesome.
and I can't think of anybody better to have it with because obviously knowing you guys and I'm pretty comfortable. I've been asked to do a bunch, but I'm just like, yeah, that seems like a trap. I'm not going to do that.
We're going to get you to talk about a bunch of weird stuff on here. No, it's going to be
Won't
great.
be the first time.
I like that term, a trap. I use that when describing things that happen on tour. It's like, this seems like a good idea. All the normal markers are there that this is a good idea. But in fact, you're going to get screwed.
Depending on what we talk about. Yeah. I mean, we get a lot of that with what I'm doing. So it's always interesting.
I'm putting it on the list for somewhere in the conversation. I'm going to bring back, tell me about some of the traps that people try to pull you into. I was going to say, Neil and I were briefly talking before this. I was like, Neil, how do you know Mark? And I thought I had a cool story, but Neil has a pretty cool story.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, you were at the showcase that we played for Victory Records, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So like from the beginning.
I was at most of those. I remember we did like 4 that week. You guys were all on tour. It was like 4-letter lie, like on the last day or something like that. And you guys, and we just did a whole bunch. And but yeah, no, I went to a lot of those back then. We knew right away where it's just like, all right, guys, everybody just start throw some paperwork around here. We need to work with this band. But what was that? 2000 fucking 3?
2000. I think it was like 2006.
6. Yes. That's right.
But
so I mean, it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. It was. I mean, for those who don't know, we went a day to remember and showcase for Victory Records, and what that kind of was like you're set up your stuff. And you're in this dark room, and then people just like walk in and they go, okay, play. And then you like don't talk to them or anything. And then you play like 4 of your songs, and then they just walk out without talking to you. And then you just go, did we fuck that up? And then in our case, we waited like a week before we heard anything because we were staying with Double J, and we were like, how did it go? He's like, I don't know, we don't know yet, Tony will probably reach out to you. And he's like, and then he took us out to dinner, and we're like, oh shit, he took us out to dinner. And we didn't have to pay for it. That's probably a pretty good sign.
which at that time was rare in of itself.
He's like, I've never done this before, but Tony said I could take you guys out, and we're like, okay, this is pretty sick. Okay, we're getting food. That's like,
I think we went out for pizza. I think I was there, and I took Tom out for beers afterwards.
We went out with Black Dahlia Murder, and we got in trouble for going out and hanging out with Black Dahlia Murder
because they were on another label, probably.
Yeah, because they didn't sign to Victory Records.
That was very the mentality back then. But yeah, I mean, those showcases were so strange. And I probably did about 30 of them in my time in the office when I wasn't touring. A wide range of bands. I mean, I saw, from, after you guys, I mean, Amir and a lot of the bands that were signing at that time. And it was always weird, man. Like no one ever talked to anybody, it was just, there was some, you got 3 songs. I was in a couple where after half a song, we all had to leave.
What?
Yeah. And I was like, dude, this is so disrespectful. I can't believe we had, but like,
Why'd you have to leave?
You just did what you were told at that time. I was like brand new and right out of college. I'm like, is this how the fucking this works? Like, cause this sucks. But
Wait,
that's
like the person that is above you at your label was like, this is so bad. I'm directing everybody here in the showcase to walk out now to send them a message. That's what's happening.
I mean, I don't think it was about sending a message. I think it was more so about there was this weird belief back. I mean, this wasn't just a Victory thing. This was kind of in the music industry at that time. And I won't name all the labels kind of not all the labels, but a lot of labels had this kind of feeling where it was just like, we're working really hard. We're not wasting time. It was kind of a weird time coming out of that like hardcore world. I came in doing Hawthorne Heights and in Thursday at Atreyu. That's like really when I kind of got in there. It was funny because Shane, I have a funny story about Silverstein. But that's when I was touring. And then I got into the label. I was in the office. Even to this day, I have a lot of people hit me up they're in school and they're like, I want to talk about like my future and what I want to do. I'm like, it's not what you think, bro. I'm like, it's going to be a different experience every place you go, and a lot of big personalities. I think that's the easiest way to say it.
It's probably the nicest way to say
it. No, it's early in this whole thing, we'll see where it goes.
You're right though. It's like, that's probably some of the best advice I've heard too. Cause it's like, you get into this industry and it's not like anything else. There's like a bunch of other parallels, but it's really like each situation is so unique, and you're working with personalities. It's big personalities. Like, it's either people that used to be into music and didn't work out, or now they're like older and this is what they're doing with their life. They start a label, they're doing all these different things, but they come from probably the performing side of it, like it takes a big personality to kind of get to that point, I think.
As far as advice and that for people that are coming up and wanting to do that, it's about having a personality. And this is why Adam thrived from the early age I met him back in the day. But it's like, you have to be able to get along with people. And it's not like going to an office and like Jill from accounting, right? It's just like, people are going to be dicks, and some people are going to be cool, and some are fucking psycho, but you still have to maintain the waters. Unless you own everything,
right?
You have to be able to deal with all those people. And that goes for tour managers. That goes for stage managers. I mean, we've all kind of dealt just to be like, all right, well, we're putting up with this person for 30 days. And then I never want to see that person again, but it's just like being able to like understand, read people, have a personality that, when to shut the fuck up, but when you should, or have an opinion when you should. And, when you have that, you rise pretty quickly.
Yeah, and I just want to take a second to say thank you, Mark, for getting me into the music industry, because whether it's known or not, Mark was my boss at Victory Records when I was on the Victory Records Stream team. He is a fellow Midwesterner you're from Wisconsin? No. Yes.
Yes, I am. Yes,
yeah, and then you moved to Chicago.
Then I moved to Chicago.
I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. Mark, what city are you from in Wisconsin?
It's like Sheboygan. It's probably like hour and a half away from Adam.
Yeah. And so he used to send me, street teams don't exist as much anymore as they used to, but this was before MySpace initially. MySpace was created.
Let's not date me too much, okay? It's not that far back. MySpace existed.
But he used to send me posters and CDs in the mail. And the funny part is Mark sent me an EP or a sampler with a Day to Remember on it, and that's how I learned about A Day to Remember. And that's how I really got involved in the music industry. So there's a lot of pieces here that I'm very thankful for, and it's cool I know we've connected multiple times since then, but it's cool to have you on like the podcast. And I just want to say thank you in front of witnesses.
I remember when that sampler was put together. That's so crazy to like kind of put those dates into my time frame as well.
Yeah, well, actually what happened is we had a showcase for Adam to be on the street team, and he had to come into this little room and hand out samplers on a stage, and then we walked out.
We were like, he's got great etiquette.
There was, and that was a different time. Adam's right. Again, that's like, has to go back to what I was saying about just like being able to talk and have connections. I mean, there's a bunch of guys and girls that I still am connected to, whether they made it into an industry that's similar to mine or not, but from Florida to Texas to New Jersey. One of the girls from New Jersey, you might remember Tara, funny enough, but she works on all kinds of big TV shows now. So it's like that kind of thing when I was 20 and I think you were 15, man, like when you first started on the street team, something like that, or whatever. It's like crazy to think that we've still been able to stay connected through music for the most part, all the way through all this, Yeah,
it's wild. Music-based industries.
That's right. That's why I was excited to come on too a little bit when I kind of pre-spoke to Adam about it. It's like, well, I don't really tour anymore. Jeffree and I, we might go out for 4 dates here or there, do this kind of stuff, but we don't tour a whole lot anymore. But that's where we all got that's literally where, Jeffree and I met. And honestly, most of my employees worked on Warped Tour or Mayhem, like half of them, have all come from that world, and they've either had kids or this or that. And they're like, well, it's time for me to hang up, the tour pass and find a job somewhere else. So, when you come into our office currently, it's just like kind of a reunion of all those old tours.
I need to come up there and check it out. But it's cool that, we'll briefly go into your stepping stones on to getting where you are today. But before we go into that, what do you think makes it attractive about working with people who have toured? Why do you think that your office is full of all these people you met on the road?
Well, it's attractive for me to hire them because I know they have good work ethic. There's a half step of that from where you're from too. I truly believe, the way you came up as a kid, me, I worked on farms and did shit like that. But it's like there's some of that experience that makes you have good work ethic. But then being on tour is a whole different thing, and I've worked with a lot of people that have and have not toured. And there's just kind of a night and day sometimes of I'll put in the extra hour. I'll come in on the weekend. We're not leaving until it's done kind of mentality. And not to say other people don't have that as well. It's just that you see it a lot more in general. The reason they were successful on tour is because they had that attitude where they can kind of get along, or work with anybody. And especially at a business like the one I've created now, we're dealing with, NFL athletes, comedians, actors, YouTubers, influencers, and everybody has a different attitude.
Personalities.
Yeah. I mean, big
personalities.
Yeah. And some of them are, very, very young and they think they know everything. And it's like, all right, well, how do you deal with this person? My team works with them very well. And we've created a great, company and a great group of clients that like probably didn't have the same insight into the world. The cool thing now is we kind of never really dealt with touring, but now obviously the comedians are starting to tour again, but the influencers and YouTubers like Danny Duncan, things like that, they'll go out and do 2 tours a year and crush it. Yeah. It's like such a different concept, than purely music, or even comedy makes more sense to people when you say, oh, he's touring. Oh, he's going to go do a show. Okay, well, what is someone who does YouTube or, things like that? What do they do? I mean, we've toured with Jeffree post music where he's doing classes and interviews and things like that, if there can be an audience, you can tour it. So.
Absolutely. I think that's kind of cool because it's like we've always touched on like how things can be in the music industry or from that music angle, but there is so many ways to tour and be out on the road. And it could, like you said, it could be comedy, it could be content creators, like being creative and like they need help doing everything that they're doing. It doesn't have to just be from that music industry angle, which is kind of awesome.
And I'll say this for those of you out there that are, merch, tour managers, things like that, those jobs pay very well because they're charging very high for tickets. Back end is very simple. It's like this dude's going to go on stage and do what he wants to for an hour. And there'll be 1,800 kids. I think that's something I learned pretty quick too, is just that like, okay, well, if you want to work in touring, there's so much touring happening that you generally don't think of. We have a lot of like Twitch, video game streaming type people, right? So it's just like, they're going out and not performing, but they're going out and playing with crowds in the morning when kids, they're coming out. There's, kids groups that are going out Sunday mornings, like for post church, young youth type stuff. I mean, there's so many jobs out there in touring non-music these days because, the interest is, for a variety of people, especially young people, is not just music anymore. They're easily exposed to so much stuff. And the idea to them, see those people or, whatever in person, it's kind of all they want in life sometimes. Yeah.
It really is.
Like that. That's the pinnacle of what can happen.
What are some of the jobs that some content creators or YouTube or Twitch would have out on the road with them?
Yeah. I mean, so specifically, I'll talk about some of the tours we have done. So, and most of them are pretty traditional when you actually end up looking at them. I mean, so we do a wide variety of the comedians like Brendan Schaub and Theo Von and Whitney Cummings, Andrew Santino, things like that. So obviously when those guys are going out, they're very lean and mean, right? Mm-hmm. They're flying to cities, doing 5 shows in a row, coming home, performing in LA, going back out to another show. It's almost rare that they'll have a bus or anything like that. And that's also kind of how a lot of our EDM acts are. We don't do a ton of EDM. We also don't do like massive festival EDM stuff. But, when you're doing weekend stuff, it's kind of like you'll have a tour manager and someone usually to run merch if you can. But a lot of times for like the comedians, it's how big a suitcases can we throw on the plane? And we're flying lean, Yeah. So that's fun. At the same time, then when you get to like kind of our Danny Duncans, I mean, they're going out with the full deal, like tour bus, stage manager, tour manager, obviously merchandise, maybe 2 people doing merchandise.
They have like a VIP coordinator or something for those kind of things. Is that like a huge draw for those tours or not so much?
It depends. Some of them do the VIP packages. it's a little different because kind of even by going, there's different that we've done different levels of like meet and greet kind of things. The fun thing about a lot of those guys is they're people of the people, right? Like they get there, they do their show, and they'll spend 2 hours more than their performance just hanging out by the merch booth. And a lot of those people, that's how they live, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, you know, Danny's pretty edgy. I'm going to keep talking about Danny because he's one of our big success stories. You know, he's pretty edgy. You know, he doesn't get his stuff monetized all the time on YouTube. Everyone's like, well, he makes a ton of money. It's like, no, he makes money because he crushes at merch. You know, he's one of the first influencers to get into retail. He's crushing it at Zoomies. You know, to retail was kind of like, well, that's kind of a crazy thing. So these guys are all very motivated to get out, be friendly with their fans, you know, take pictures, sell merch, you know, and honestly, some bands are like that too. And I wish more were. I think back in like the early Warp days and things like that, you know, it was a little bit more like, yeah, I'm going to go hang out, you know, at the merch booth for 5 hours and just meet people. And that's kind of the period I came up in, doing the early Warp tours and all that kind of stuff. And not that that doesn't exist anymore, but, you know, I feel like that kind of almost youth punk rock ethos has kind of translated to some of the more, you know, online personalities than some of the online musicians. Hot take.
Was that something? Yes. Was that something that you guys helped Danny Duncan with getting into a retail situation with his merch?
Yes. Funny. I think you guys actually know our head of sales who handles Danny. He was in a band called Lower Definition. His name's Stefan Toller.
San Diego homie, right?
Yep, from San Diego. Another band I tried to sign to Victory at the exact same time as all of you guys. Funny enough, we had just signed you. I went to Angels and Angels and Demons or whatever that festival was in New Jersey, and it was basically like, no, we signed a Day to Remember. We're not signing Lower Definition. And I was like,
oh my gosh, don't tell anyone that.
no.
Nick's gonna be pissed.
Tino,
pissed. He's not talking to me anymore. Young Fuego. He's like, my life could have been different.
Well, that was a Tony call. I wanted everybody.
Yes. Yes, it's fucking Tony's fault.
You get a deal. You get a deal. You get a deal.
So 100%. So we had tried for years because we haven't even mentioned Killer Merch. So Killer Merch is the company we started
what
up
do you
here,
do?
Right? So to bring that full circle, we started in music and then kind of floated away from music, right? Now we have all these clients and properties that are like crushing it, but like nobody believes they're crushing it, right? Like you go to a retail, you go to a Zoomies or someone like that, and you're going, hey, we have this brand that's not really a brand, it's like a person, but it's a brand, and they're like, we don't really follow, like that's not Hurley, you know, it's not like whatever it is. And so it took us a couple years to kind of like prove that it's a thing. And it's like just showing numbers wasn't enough. It's like, we can drive traffic like nobody can drive traffic. We have the guy, whatever guy it is, like that person will, and they're like, okay, let's give it a try. So that was probably about, 18 months ago. I think we really kind of picked up with, maybe about 2 years. We picked up with Zoomies and now partly because of that, but also because the world is different.
Right.
You know, people were locked down for a while. They spent a lot of time online. What's popular, they see what's happening. So now I think a lot of retail in general is kind of opening up their eyes and going, what else is out there, right?
Yeah.
Like it was so traditional to have like Obey and Thrasher and all this stuff. Well, it's all cool stuff. There's so much more out there now that kids are having access to and they're wanting to buy online or, you know, at events or whatever it is. So I think retail is really opening up, and that kind of goes to why we started Killer in the first place. It's like we just wanted better online opportunities for the bands we worked with at the time. And we didn't feel like I wasn't in merch at that time. I was working with a few labels and they weren't happy with what was happening. And, you know, they were looking for better opportunities. And I said, well, why don't we just do our own thing? Can we do that? And I was like, yeah.
I think it's people like you that kind of came from that other side and understand the necessity of that and how it doesn't really exist, that are kind of like pushing that new idea of like, this can't exist this way. You know, like it doesn't have to be this way that we've always done for, I don't know, since like this industry began. And it's like we can have these opportunities. We just got to think a little bit more creatively. And especially with those content creators, I mean, they are making videos that can market this merchandise to hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people, every video they make. They're walking marketing It's the whole time. And it's not forced. It's not weird. It's like you look at the Nelk Boys or whatever, for example, like they have the full send thing and it's like, that is all that they make these videos that everyone watches anyways. And it's just like a full commercial the whole time. And it's not weird. It's not forced.
And it's on different levels too. And it's funny because I still obviously talk to and work with a lot of musical acts and artists and things like that. And I kind of try to encourage them to like tap into that world a little bit more. I just feel like, I think you hit it on the head, not just merchandise, but like music and music merchandise and just music in general has just been the same thing over and over and over. Not the music itself, but just like, here's how we market this. Here's how we roll this out. We need ads, we need this. And not that those things aren't good or work, but it just seems like music has kind of fallen behind in the idea of how to do outreach. I mean, your band's a perfect example. You guys always had great videos, whether they're around a new song or not. Like, you guys were entertaining as fuck, either on tour or on video. Like, honestly, like, I don't know many people who are doing even that kind of stuff. You know, maybe I think Sum 41 always had some fun stuff I liked way back in the day. They put on the DVDs and things like that. But it's just like, to be in a band and be successful, you have to be a personality. Like, if you're boring, like, that's part of like you taking off. So if you have all of that, and once video really became, you know, you were giving me shit about no MySpace. There was MySpace when I was back at, but just like having those videos up there, it's like, okay, well, now we can actually record content, you know? Even a lot of our people these days that we sign, this does almost predate me a little bit, but all the early CKY videos, right? Like all that stuff where it was like skate videos. And then it was like, well, there's like all these skits and like funny shit. And it's like, even people we're signing today that are 16 or 18 are going, I love, you know, Johnny Knoxville. I love Bam Margera. I love these early videos from these kind of people that were like, they had to be on MTV because there's nowhere else to watch it, you know?
Right.
So even the fact that they recognize that, it was like early on. And I think bands that, you know, humanized the bands were ones that like were able to kind of come around, and you guys did that. And, you know, I mean, Newfound Glory and a lot of people that we were on a Warped Tour with, because it's a 45-day slog of content, right? It's like, well, what the fuck else are we going to do? Let's film every barbecue. Let's take photos. I mean, that's where Adam did a lot of stuff. My first ad ever, do you remember this? Was a Vic Firth, Alex, Atticus.
Oh yeah.
Adam photo. And it was
really?
in Revolt. I put it in all these ads or all these magazines.
Cool. Is that when you were at Atticus?
Yeah, you shot it on Warped Tour for me.
Oh.
See,
was it behind him?
This is the thing. Adam taught us to even do this. Like, we worked with Adam obviously through like promos and stuff like that, but then like as like other bands were kind of gaining this momentum of being like these social media, like Pierce the Veil, for example, they were huge on social media kind of coming up. And we never really had that in the beginning. Like, we didn't really expose that aspect of like, here's like our everyday thing. Like, we made like the funny videos or we did like these things or whatever, but we just didn't even think about using social media in that way. And like Adam coming on with us was like, yo, let's do this.
I drew up like PDFs and post schedules and like what to post. And I remember like going out with artists and like giving them my photos and then posting the photos and be like, dude, it's not getting enough likes. I'm like, your selfies are going to crush these photos every time. You got to like do a variety. It was such a funny learning curve of like working with artists to teach them how to be like influencers. And it was jumping from like a Day to Remember to Pierce to All Time Low and learning from them and then taking those things to another art. I don't know. It was crazy back then.
Well, it was like the Wild West. I mean, it still is. I think it's all still very young. And I think that it's all still kind of morphing and changing. And like, there's no rules now. Like, there's people that can be insane at music, but be insane on Twitch and have like this crazy like following on Twitch, but then they're like making these YouTube videos where their content's like next level, and it's like they're thinking about it all together now, whereas back then it was like, hey, we're a band, let's make some videos, you know, because we want to be like Blink-182, we want to make these funny videos and do all these things, and now they're just like, yeah, we do that, we're doing it, we're on TikTok, we're doing it anyways, we like that, it's how we are.
Yeah, it was cool to see, you know, over the period, because it's like you have your guys like Periphery who like control a whole one side of the internet, and then you have like you know, Danny asking and Ronnie and Telly from The Word Alive, like they're streaming all the time, playing games and bringing in huge, you know, crowds, and they're making money by it, but they're also, it's promoting, and again, it's like kind of making it human. It's like, oh, you know, unless you're that kind of band where you're just like, no one's ever going to see me, I'm going to be super dark and wear corpse paint. It's just like people want to relate to everybody now, you know, and it's just like, I love both kind of bands, don't get me wrong, but it's just like, if that's what you're going for, and obviously, you know, to even further it, like if you want to make a living to some extent, you have to be able to diversify, right? Like you can't just, especially you get hit with something like the last year and it's like, well, what are you going to do now? So it's like, you ain't going to play any shows. So what else? And I think we've seen a ton of tour people and artists and, everybody in the industry go, well, what else am I good at? And find out how to monetize it at the beginning of the whole thing. And I'm like, man, this is going to shake out the industry. There's going to be no bands left. Like they're all going to stop playing for a bit, start getting real jobs, not real, you know what I'm saying? Like
Families.
Office jobs, things like that. And then touring will start again in a year and they're going to be like, well, I'm pretty comfortable now. But like that didn't happen.
You gained the COVID 20.
Yeah, right.
That's where I'm at now now. I'm about to go. I got to lose that shit so we can get back on the
road. Start running around.
Yeah, something.
All the festivals. I mean, there's so many, tours and things being announced right now, and it was because everybody was crazy able to adapt and find like I can stream or I mean, a lot of studio stuff. I think a lot of records got written in the last year. I think there's going to be a plethora of new music coming out here in the next 8 months. Yeah, I mean, it was inspiring to see, and especially the tour industry and again, that's where I came from. I never, played in a band, so I was always on the staff side on Warped Tour and all those other places, and I still know all those people. And it's like, okay, and I can only hire so many of you, So it's like, what is everybody else doing? I mean, it was that like there was this whole plan I had with the Warped Tour. I was going to put out an announcement, and I was like, dude, I'm going to hire as many people in LA as I can, but you kind of don't realize how many people are in that world, what it takes to really, really move the music industry touring wise, because we're in our world, but then you have, okay, well, that doesn't include the 60 people out with NSYNC or the, right. It's just like, there's so many different worlds or country or EDM. And it's like, man, there really is so many people in this industry. And it was tough. And they didn't get a good shake on the last 12 months for sure.
I think we being the music industry, really we were the first to go away and like probably the last to come back as like everything kind of gets going again. And then there was no real program for anybody that kind of worked in this thing. Everyone's just like, yeah, figure it out. But like you said, I think everyone in the touring industry is like some of the hardest working people that exist. There is no like, when you're on tour, it's not like I work from 8 a.m. until 8 p.m. It's like, no, from the moment you wake up, you are busting your ass until the moment you literally fall asleep from exhaustion. And then you got to get to wherever you're going. You got to shower, you got to clean up, you got to care for yourself. It's fucking crazy. And I think that if you can survive on tour, you can pretty much survive any situation, regardless of what's being thrown at you. You learn to be adaptable. You have to, I think.
No, 100%.
Yeah. When we were speaking about people kind of merchandising or merchandising the personalities, like I feel like very relatable to Mark's current situation, running Jeffree's merch, but also all of us came up on Warped Tour witnessing the growth of his business and seeing that happen. And that was like the first time, honestly, just seeing his merch numbers every day at Warped Tour and having a line around 10. He wasn't even playing music on Warped Tour back then. It was just crushing
the first time, I don't think.
Yeah.
Well, the last 3 times we did Warped, it was just like, well, this is specifically Jeffree. So when we did Warped with him, it was just making an appearance, kind of at that point, the makeup brand existed. So, unlike, when he was performing and sold an obscene amount of merch, now he wasn't performing and still selling an obscene amount of merch. So, and that's a whole different thing to deal with too, just coming in there where it's like, we did that farewell show or whatever in San Francisco, which was two summers ago. So it's like
has it been that long already?
Farewell Warped Tour?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That final show they did up there. So it's like, but just to even run that, we had 2 tour buses, 2 trailers. I had 18 staff, and we weren't even performing. That was literally to go up there and do meet and greets and sell merch.
Wow.
So it's fun to do that. He's a
force. He is a personality. Like even from the beginning, it did like, you knew that, like you were around him and you're just like, man, this guy is like, you feel it. You feel his energy. It radiates around him no matter what he's doing. Or like, you would just like see him like coming, like he'd come watch your show, right? Like he'd come watch A Day to Remember or something. And you just like turn around and be like, oh yeah. Okay. Jeffree Starr's back. People will be like screaming and shit. He's like on stage. I'm like, oh shit, it's pretty cool. And then you're like, oh, it's Jeff. Okay. All
right. I'm fortunate enough to spend most of my days at this point with him. So it's still like that. It doesn't matter if we're at a McDonald's or, a mall or whatever it is we're doing, but he's another good example of a guy who was out there. That's where we met, was Warped Tour, '08. I think he was performing, and I was out there with my first year with Atticus.
Can't believe that was '08.
You were out there, Devil Wears Prada, like those are all bands we were working with at that time. And obviously he terrified the shit out of me. We didn't hang out or anything like that, but that was our intro. And then, who knew, 10 years later or whatever, we'd own a couple companies together. And then, I helped run most of his cosmetic operations. So it's been a weird road. You only meet so many people that you're just like, this person's going to work until they are a success or they die. Like one of those two things is going to happen. And, it's been interesting working with him. We're two very different people, but I think that's why we work well together. That's why this is the first pod thing I've ever done, other than appearing in the background of his videos and things like that. So it's never been, I'm not the guy that wants to be out front and all that, do social media and things like that. But, like I said, I think that's why we work together and it's interesting being able to merchandise and also see the collaborations we've been able to do. I mean, it's funny because he came up in the exact same time and he knows everybody. He's not like this out of reach person that the whole Warped world, doesn't know. But I was with him earlier, Adam. He says hello and that you've taken some very nice photos of him. So
yeah, I was actually going to tap in if I could say, and sorry, first of all, thank you. Hi, Jeff. One of my hardest things I struggle with is all these people I meet in the music industry as they go through their levels of fame, or how do I say it? Like people desire their attention more and they kind of have to push people away. It always breaks my heart that I can't keep in touch with people like Jeffree or people like that because they just become so busy, and I never take it personally. But man, I wish there was like a way I could be like, hey, I don't need anything from you. I just want to hang out sometime. I don't know if you guys ever struggle with that, or like the people you meet on tour that are, I don't know. Can you guys relate on any level?
Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to like hit someone up and feel like you're asking for something, which I feel like most of the time, like once you reach a point of success, that like most people that hit you up who haven't talked to you in a while, that's probably what the request is. But it's like, I'm sure it would be really fine to be like, yo, let's fucking hang out.
How do you navigate that, Mark? Especially since you might be in the position that Neil has been in with his band, where other people are hitting him up now that you're, arguably much more busy than you were 10 years, maybe the same amount of busy, but just on another level. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be surprised if you have any trouble with that. Cause I'd be hard pressed to find a single person that has something negative to say about you or wouldn't want to be around. But I think I can kind of relate as well to you, Adam, just because it's like, again, we come from kind of the non-music side of things. And obviously you're touring in a lot more ways when you have stuff to do, especially when you're touring and you're at a certain place, and I'll say it comes down to a lot of who the people are too. I remember when I was in San Diego at like a Rex the Halls, I think, or maybe it was the Day to Remember show. You guys were playing with like Pierce the Veil, or I don't know. I don't remember what tour it was. I just remember I was there and I saw Josh, and Josh was like, "Bubb, what's up?" And it's like, like I have this. I'm the guy that doesn't even like going backstage, like at all. Like I go to shows and just don't even go back because like I don't like to be the awkward one. It's just like, oh, hey man, I'm standing in this fucking corner. But it's just like, I'm serious, dude. Like all the time, it's like it like stresses me out. Like,
what's up?
I mean, some guy's gonna ask me like, who the fuck are you? I'm just like, I'm nobody, man. I'm gonna go back to the soundboard.
All right, I'll leave.
I'm good. But there's a certain extent, and it defines, I think, to me, and especially as I grew older and did Atticus and like sponsored bands and like who I wanted to like actually work with. Once I got to the point where post Atticus, right, I didn't have anything to offer. I had money and clothes and stuff to give to people then, but post that, I spent a bunch of years doing my own, festival like company and things like that, where it was just like I go to shows and then those people would say what's up or see me and pull me in, like talk, and it's like that to me meant a lot because it was just like I made some sort of impression that mattered enough that they even remember who I am 3 years later, or even with the Victory days, it's just like, Doug from The Sleeping moved out here for a bit and worked down the street. And, obviously I'm good homies with Javi from the Warriors and because we're all out here, but it's like, there's no reason that has to be a thing.
Javi is, his story is incredible.
Javi's a force in himself. Yeah.
He's one of my favorite human beings.
Dude. We try to go to like a lunch every couple of weeks, and it's just an experience.
I remember we always assumed that, like, when we were coming up, we looked at people that worked at Victory Records as like the coolest ever, because we thought that Victory was the coolest ever. You know, you were one of the first people that we kind of looked up to at Victory Records, because as a young band, we went to Victory Records and we were like, this is a place we want to be signed. And everyone that works here has to be the coolest person ever. You know, like when you go in there, and you were so welcoming, there was so much hospitality. Like that first night we talked about earlier, we went to the showcase and you invited us out to go drink beers with this other band that we were like, holy shit, it's Black Dahlia Murder. And to us, that was like fucking next level. We thought that was the coolest thing ever. We're like, this guy works at Victory Records and he's so nice. And he's like welcoming us into his world. And we just didn't know that. We didn't know what it was like. And so in our minds, like, you will always be like Mark Bubb, the fucking first person that worked at Victory Records that was nice to us. You know what I mean? It's like,
it's that Wisconsin coming through, you know?
Yeah, you're on a podcast with two Wisconsinites right now, Neil. Nothing but nice vibes in here.
dude, I actually asked my wife to marry me in Wisconsin. So I have a tie to Wisconsin as well.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. Apple River. You know about that shit? I floated down the Apple River many a time.
Were you guys were playing a festival up there?
Was it Northern Invasion?
Gotcha. Yep.
A friend of ours was kind of putting on Northern Invasion and became friends with the person who owned the campground at the Apple River. They invited us to come there when we were on the Blink tour. And that was the first time I met my wife. Like, I met Mary. She's like, hey, come hang out and go camping. And then whenever I asked her to marry me, we went back to the same campground. And I was like, hey, let's go camping. And then I asked her. And then so like Wisconsin kind of plays a part in our little relationship. So
everything leads back to Wisconsin.
It's true. It's true.
Everything.
All right. I have a note written down, if I can segue to this. It says traps. Sure. And Mark,
it says trap.
You're a very well-educated business person. You've jumped from touring, working at a label. Well, I mean, I'm gonna lay it out here.
Sure,
okay. You've worked in touring. You've worked at a label. You've worked for Atticus. You worked at Jedediah, which is another clothing company. You've done your own thing, and now you run Killer Merch, which reps a lot of, very large artists. You mentioned traps before we started the show. Are there any traps in this industry that just come to mind of things that people do that maybe they shouldn't do?
I mean, you really laid it out there well. When I mentioned that earlier, it was more so with, try to do right by everybody and like be cool, whether it's employees or the team or our clients or things like that. To me, the way the world has changed since those MySpace days, where everybody was like pretty much on the up and up. Now with our client list, in the last couple of years and just with everything, it's like everybody's trying to get some dirt on somebody else, or what's going on or what's the drama or this or that, just because they want to be able to post that stuff, and, as a business, we have a lot of crazy, the really cool thing, I'll say this about what Killer has going on is that we're not just like a faceless, we're making some t-shirts and shipping them out for you kind of thing. Like our entire roster comes to our office pretty regularly. And these are some pretty high level people that don't even necessarily live in LA, whether it be the actors or the comedians or not even just like the YouTube people, but it's just like, there's a lot of, like we said earlier, a lot of big personalities, a lot of, private stuff that's going on because there's secret tours being announced or TV shows or all this kind of stuff. And, it's not irregular for some guy from TMZ to be parked out in our back parking lot. One of them offered our maintenance guy a bunch of money to it's like crazy shit like that. And it's like, that's never anything I thought I would ever deal with. Yeah. It's just like, I'm going to sell fucking punk rock music and drink beers and fucking make a living. Right. And now it's like,
leave me alone.
I'm doing makeup on one end and I'm dealing with, A-list, actors occasionally on this side. And it's like, who the fuck am I, So it's one of those things where it's like, it's not just necessarily me because I can, handle myself, I think perfectly fine, but it's like trusting the 100 people that work for us to understand that as well. And that goes from graphic design to our sales team, to our customer service. And it's like, they're not entrenched in the world like I had been, or all of us had been to get to this point. So there's, there's just a lot going on and there's a lot of people, and it's not because of merch. And it's not because of me. It's just because of who you deal with, you know? And I guess as any big business grows, you know, and you get bigger and you associate with those, whether you're a booking agency or a touring agency or whatever it is, you get those bigger clients, that kind of shit's going to follow you. But, you know, I think that's been the biggest kind of growing, I don't want to say growing pain, but like the most annoying thing. Like if I didn't have to deal with that and like everybody's just like, everybody, because otherwise it's just like, you know, Brendan Schaub will come in and we'll talk about MMA and then we'll do a photo shoot for his Thick Boy stuff and then he'll leave, you know, but it's like, well, everybody else wants to know what was he doing there? What's going on? So, you know, it's a little beyond wherever I thought I'd be in my career, but, you know, I've adapted. We're figuring it out.
It sounds like, you know, and Neil and I talk about this a lot. It sounds like, you know, the principle of just trust and being a good person to work with and not being a dick really go a long way. And those principles can kind of be applied and stretched to the things you're talking about, where it's, hey, you know, like this is a private thing. These people there's a lot of people that are after these people or want to know what's going on in their, not after, but want to know what's going on in their life that isn't their business. And it's our job to kind of keep that private.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's a trust to your word, right? Like where it's like, if I know about a stadium tour a year in advance, well, that better not leak, right? Well, Little Dicky has been with us, and between music and TV, and we have, like I said, it's a lot about stuff like that, where it's like, it's not just like someone's gonna be like, oh, this tidbit leaked. It's like, it's huge stuff where you're talking like Fox and whatever, and it's just like, that's a bad look for everybody. They have to trust you, and for that to happen, you know, you also have to, you know, trust your people. So I have to say I'm very proud of my entire team. Not that any of that had happened, but I mean, you know, like I said, that stuff tries to happen all the time. And trust me, when people thrive on the internet, drama follows them around.
I mean, like you said, it's like these people are infectious and people want to have some part of them. They want to, and as you deal with people like that comes with like the TMZ or like these people that are trying to get this little piece of information that can help them in their job too, you know, because like, with these big personalities, that's all you want to do is just have like a little bit of extra, like this extra view, this extra angle, this extra thing that you don't get anywhere else, you know?
Yeah. At some point it like crossed the line to the point where like the Kardashians, like love them or hate them, they gave you everything, right? Like anybody who cared, like the idea of I should be able to be intimately involved or know everything about the people I care about, whether that be a band or whoever it is, just got too far at one point, you know? So where's that line? Where's the line between I'm giving you access to see that I'm human and fun and a great musician and I want you to support me, and you're going to show up in my front yard and, you know, seriously, it happens to our people all the time. Like almost every one of our clients has had to like make a statement where like, this is a problem. Like I've had a few people that have actually moved homes because it became too much. Wow. So, you know, it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, as fans and as just people ourselves, you know, it's easy for us to say, I love this musician. I'm never going to fucking show up on their front yard, you know,
right.
But it's a different time now. And, you know, whether it's Jeffree or a Logan Paul or a Danny has that happen a lot too. It's, you know, they've had to ask, like, don't do that. So there's a line that also has to be drawn.
It's kind of it's an interesting time because I think that like with the internet and these social media or like even, you know, like the Keeping Up with the Kardashians where it's like reality TV, like we're all still trying to figure out where that new boundary exists. Right. And then there's certain people that are pushing the boundary even further, kind of like streaming on Twitch, maybe 24 hours a day and like kind of like having these different people that are even pushing it further. So it's like, as people kind of pull back, there's other people pushing the boundary further and existing completely on the internet. And I think that like, as we get into this new world, you know, like whatever life after COVID looks like, there's going to be all these new things when we go back out into public, you know, like people have been like streaming and you have all this access to people. And as they get back into touring and they get back into whatever their career is, you're going to have to figure out these whole new boundaries that people are comfortable with, you know, like if you have people in bands that stream, other people in their band that don't stream, maybe be like, I don't want you streaming back here in this dressing room where I'm trying to like warm up or do this and all that. It's like it's going to be a whole new thing that we have to figure out and navigate. And again, it is different too, to where it's like, you're not going to go show up on someone's doorstep because like you feel like you know them very well through Twitch, you know, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
Well, it will happen.
Really
You're
think
right.
you would.
But I'm saying,
I
like,
really think you would.
but most people, thank God.
But, yeah.
I mean, people don't really care about us like that. You know, we don't have like that level of fanaticism with us. We've been, I don't know. I think it's lucky, I guess. I don't know.
When are you guys going back out?
I don't know. I can't talk about it yet, right?
I don't know.
Announce it here on the podcast.
I'm the one like pushing exclusives. It's like, come on, man, tell us.
It's like a trap. I'm like, well, there's this tour we're going to be doing with
exactly trap.
And, you know.
Yeah. So there is a question that I wanted to kind of ask, and I wanted to know, because I don't know, and you touched briefly on it, that Killer Merch, you know, is more than just a merch company. You're not just printing T-shirts. And Neil and I are both really familiar with a merch company, because if we need something made, or his band needs something made, you know, they go to him and have their merch made. Mm-hmm. But what makes Killer Merch different than those merch companies? And before you go into that, could you touch on, even just briefly for people who are new to this world, what merch companies did prior, or what the relationship was like with artist client?
You know, I can't generalize every merch company. Obviously, I'm friends with a good amount of them. I think we've come into a new world in that sense, where there's a pretty good core group of merch companies. Well, and I can talk specifically for music, but there's obviously a lot now that only focus on non-music stuff. And we're kind of in the middle. But, you know, even when I was at Victory and back in the day, when I was like trying to help bands who didn't have managers find merch deals and things like that, it was war. Like, everyone hated everybody else, and they were very competitive. They're throwing advances, like all this stuff. But there was never, honestly, I just didn't feel like there was real cohesion. Now, there's a pretty good circle of us that, you know, the merch world, I'll say this for everybody, we're the last to get paid, right? When it comes to bands, 95% of the time, you pay your staff, you pay the touring, you pay out, and a lot of times we get left holding the bag, right? So why would we all not get along when we can talk to each other and say, hey, man, I noticed this band's available now. And it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't do that, you know? And that's kind of a business inside of things. Like, people don't think about that. And it's kind of disheartening, because I've worked with some people I thought, you know, wouldn't have that issue. And it's just a reoccurring problem. And it's not necessarily their fault. You know, things don't sell, tours get canceled, things like that. But it's more than not, you know, merch companies are a pretty big risk for anyone to own. So to do them right, you know, one, you have to find the right clients. And again, that word you have, people you trust. What I think kind of makes us different than something that was traditional is just kind of more the full service side of things. Whereas, I mean, especially as you get to much, much bigger companies that have the Beyoncés in such of the world, it's like a lot of those people are good people, but the company itself is more rep, right? They outsource customer service, or they outsource, you know, design. They outsource this. Everything from beginning to end for our clients is in house with us. So,
oh wow, that's awesome.
Someone comes in, they want us to rebrand, make them a new logo. Then we'll design a whole new spread, you know, to launch. We'll do the store for them. As far as the web store is concerned, we handle the manufacturing, whether it's overseas or domestic. We ship everything in-house. We customer service everything in-house. We have regulatory if we're doing cosmetics or cologne or face wash, or, you know, we have a lot of people that might not necessarily be our clients, but as a company, you know, there's definitely artists that'll come and say, hey, I wear makeup. It would be great if I could release an eyeliner, or I want to release a cologne. We've done cologne for a couple NFL guys. So it's like, you're not going to see us repping a big store, but we act as a manufacturer for them just because of what we have. So very little outsourced. It's all put within our deal. So I'm obviously trying to like walk nicely here, not group in every merch company and say, well, they don't do this or they don't do this. But, you know, there's definitely people very similar to us now. You know, as there's companies that only focus on influencers, or only focus on gaming and things like that. It's a lot more niche for different things, because comedians never thought about selling merch, or gamers would never sell merch, or NFL players would never have their own line. Like, that shit just didn't happen 10 years ago. You know, I mean, very rarely. You know, if you were doing merch, you were selling to retail and you were doing band merch, or you had like you repped whatever O'Neill or whatever big brand, right? Like Hurley, whatever. So now the fact that like a company like us can exist, shotgun all over the goddamn place and say, well, we like sports. We have Sean O'Malley and Max Holloway. So we started getting in the UFC, and we're like, hey, this is awesome. And it lets those, the fighters or the players or, the streamers or whoever, like kind of have their own personality, even outside of their league, who probably control a lot of their rights too. So I think just the diversity and then because of that, being able to jump around and well, we're not in any way a management company or anything like that. Because of that kind of atmosphere where we've built, funny enough, I think I told you we're working on building a big video and podcast room that any of our clients can use because almost all of them have like 8 podcasts. Seriously, they crank out more content than I've ever fucking seen in my life. But, so if they want to come record, we have 2 different photo set studios that we have a separate building for where we do sets and obviously product shots. We have 2 different design rooms where they can come in and sit down with our actual designers and go, hey, I really want to make, I'll give Ninja as a good example. Everything we do for Ninja is completely custom because he has a very specific thing of what he wants. He wanted pockets down to the knees, all the way down to the knees, because when he's gaming, he doesn't like his phone and shit falling out of his pockets. Said, great, we're going to make deep as fuck pockets. Great. He's tall. He wanted stuff extra baggy. There's nothing basic about what he wanted. He's like, when I game, and he does it for 10 hours a day, he's like, I'm going to be sitting in this, right? So I want it to be super comfortable. We also did his new gamer hoodies, which are very big with musicians and athletes because it's a hood basically built for having headphones on, so that doesn't muffle the audio. But also athletes and everybody likes walking through the airport, not being seen by media or fans or stuff. So then they can put it up and have the headphones on the outside and, get that beat sponsorship or whatever they're doing. But it's like, that's crushing for us too,
Genius.
So it's like, you can come in and design or not, but it's just like, these are things that it's like are available. And to me, we're trying to create more of, it's a creative space, right? It's like, come in. I mean, Danny films skate videos there all the time. He's filming, do a podcast, create some art. It's like this real creative world. I think that we're just trying to like, being a merch company is not enough anymore. If we only did merch, I would have went out of business years ago. It's just like we have to have a way to help our clients move that merch at the same time. And normally that expense wouldn't fall on a company. And traditionally, merch companies wouldn't have paid for anything, maybe some band sponsorships. Obviously they did tour sponsorships, things like that. But, at this point, it's like, I look back at those days, when I went to Atticus and bands would hit me up and be like, hey, give us 50 grand and we'll make this the Atticus tour. Right. And I'm like, yeah, that'd be cool. But then I look back now and I'm like, that probably sold 5 fucking t-shirts, it's just like, what did that, other than looking cool, like, what did that really do? And at the end of the day, we want to help out the artist, but I don't have a job if I can't move any units,
Yeah.
Have you noticed that working with different types of creators, or like whether it's like, comedians or YouTube or whatever, you would make and market and sell merch differently to each of those different crowds, like music or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, to some extent. I mean, at this point, social media is just running so rampant. The comedians are different, right? They're a little bit older. We definitely have some more legacy type stuff too. So we do Eddie Van Halen. It's a little bit easier for me to reach people through Facebook than it is on TikTok, and that's just how it is. I mean, Eddie's stuff does, rest in peace. The families have stuck with us after obviously he passed, and we're putting out a bunch of tribute stuff right now, and it's just cool stuff. But it's a different market.
Yeah.
I mean, Little Dicky is an interesting example because when we signed him 6 years ago, he was almost a YouTuber, right? Mm-hmm. Like he came out with this awesome album, professional rapper. The first 3 videos were just fucking incredible, 100 million views. Yeah. And back then you didn't get those kind of views. And well, now he has a TV show, so it's just like that kind of YouTube, notoriety. While it's still there, he goes on Sway. That's one I always see pop up in my feed. But now that, how do we integrate into, now we're at that stuff. We're like, well, how do we play in big boy media now? not, do I need to run a commercial?
Mhm.
It's just like, what is that connectivity? Obviously you're always going to be connected to the internet, but it's fun. And we've talked about commercials before. We're like, let's do a Super Bowl commercial.
Oh
We're
my
like,
God, that would be insane.
let's just do something so ridiculous. But yeah, have we done it? No. But we're to that point where it's just like getting to work with, and we're fortunate getting to work with people that stuff might actually make a difference. I think as a world, we're also at the point where, does buying an ad make a difference? Does buying a billboard make a difference? It's like, should I just dump all this money into, having you guys and 10 other podcasts talk about it and buy Instagram ads and things like that? It's tough to say. That's where pretty much everything's going, though.
Yeah.
I would say there's not a great variance from YouTube. That we did pretty well with Facebook with NFL. It all kind of sums down to social ads and
It's melting together. Everything's the same.
and the other thing that we've been very fortunate is the fact that all of our clients are their own people, right? Like they have these massive followings, or they've built very dedicated smaller bases, and we spend very little money on actual like advertising and marketing, because I'd like to say it's because we're really good at picking who we work with, but they're so dedicated. Everybody knows almost immediately. It would almost be a waste of money to do that kind of stuff. So everybody's different. Every client decides if they want to do more ads or just communicate directly. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy how, even when we were releasing, first records, we're like, okay, well, here's all the magazines we're doing ads in, and we're going to do, we did Bench. I remember we did a bunch like Between the Buried and Me, like bus benches, and we were doing all the snipes up on the construction. And it's like, oh, that stuff's cool. It's cool. It's good notoriety. It's great for the band. But again, is it actually selling stuff? It's tough to say.
Yeah. It's hard to track too, and I think that's sometimes what those advertisers rely on. They're like, hey, at least with Facebook and Instagram, you can be like, here's how many people clicked, and here's how many people bought something because they clicked here, and here's how many people saw it. It's so much more.
Back then, they always gave those numbers, but I'm like, how the fuck do you know that? It's like there was like 200,000 people that drove by this, and we know that some of them looked at it.
Yeah,
but that was about it. That's all we know.
Well, here's Sally, Billy. They definitely went and bought a record. We know. How do you know that?
They live near that one billboard, and we tracked their house, and so
they took the survey. Yeah.
No, that shit was crazy though. I will say that was one of the differences between Victory and other people, was they were willing to do that shit, whether it worked or not. It was like different. Like most people weren't willing to kind of do the like benches and all that kind of stuff. The more interesting.
Listen, and as much as I like to joke, I didn't have a terrible time working there. I loved all the bands we got to work with. And that's one thing. I mean, I ran the VAT program. So at one point I had 7 Escalades or vans, and I was in charge of the whole team that would drive around and the whole guerrilla marketing, all that kind of stuff. And I mean, I think in the 2 years I was in the office, I think I made over like 1.8. I have a T-shirt I made at the time. When I left, I think I made like 1.8 million samplers.
Oh my God!
That got out through all those tours, through the street team, through the festivals, all that, through the holiday packages, all that stuff that we were doing back then. But yeah, Neil, you're totally right. It's just like not a lot of people were dumping that much money, and I mean, just the vehicles alone were $500,000 to keep running. We were blowing through transmissions like fucking candy. So it's like to even have. Anyone going out there and doing it for them. I mean, that was always something. I think that was like one thing that is like, you can't take that away from what they were doing.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, and that was the one thing too, is like, we wanted to be a part of that, because I remember growing up and like looking up to Victory Records, you get that sampler, like you buy the Atreyu album or something, and it comes with that sampler in it. And like, oh, you're like, who's this Hawthorne Heights band? Who is this Aiden? Or like any of these new bands that were like kind of coming up like at that time. And I was just like, whoa, this is awesome. This is like my new favorite band. And I didn't even know it. And it was like, we were like, we want to be someone's new favorite band because they bought a Hawthorne Heights album, or they bought a Take Back Sunday record, or whatever. We were like, that's so cool. And I can't talk good or bad about it. It is what it is. But it was such an interesting thing to where it was like, is this worth it? Like, is dealing with this personality that everyone talks about, is it worth it? Because like you could see like bands that were coming through and doing that, they were getting bigger and they were like different from every other label too. So, and you have people that like you know, like you were like the best at what you did. Like I was friends with like Matt, who like worked at Atticus, came under you.
He worked from Victory. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like we
he was one
met
of my
Matt.
drivers for that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was always on our tour for some reason. And like I would ride with Matt like in the Victory vehicle and we would just like hang out because like people were just good people and they liked music. They loved doing it. They were hardworking, and the industry is so small that everyone kind of just finds each other still. Like even now, like what is it? It was 2006. It's like 14, 15 years later. Like we can still like find each other through like these different, it's such a small world. And it's like, we always preach to be a good person and understand that it's all connected. And just because like you don't think it is, it is.
Well, I was just going to say, so when Matt left, after I left Victory and went there and then took him to Atticus, and then I left Atticus, he got his job with Primitive.
Yeah.
And he's the one that got Doug from the photography job with Primitive. Yeah. And that's why he came out here. So it's just like, you know, like I said, it's one of those things, we came up together, and it's pretty funny how it's just like, oh yeah, dude, I haven't seen him in 8 years. I'll help him out. I don't give a fuck. Let's do this, you know?
That is awesome. Damn. Yeah, I love Matt. And actually, do you know how I met Matt, Mark? Do you know this story? It's related to Victory.
I don't. I'm not sure I do.
Okay, so I photographed the Devil Wears Prada in front of a Victory van getting towed.
Oh, shit. Yeah, this was on...
Was this in Detroit?
Like the start of our
No, it was in Austin.
Shit, Adam.
And it was at South by Southwest, and it's before I knew Matt. And Matt comes up and he's like yelling at the tow truck people to not take his Victory van getting towed, and it's the Devil Wears Prada in front going like this. And I took a picture, and then somebody actually found the email. Somebody, I think it was like a Data Remembers tour manager, sent it to Tony or something.
No, Matt, he saw it. Tony always saw it.
Whatever happened, and at that point, I felt terrible, but keep in mind, this is like 2007. I have the email. I sent an email to Tony apologizing. I found the date. It was 2009, saying, hey, I'm sorry that they posted this. I understand you're really mad. Data Remember had nothing to do with this. It was just me. And Tony just wrote back, every clown in that photo made a major fucking mistake, as did you. And then the repercussions of this photo, which had nothing to do with the Data Remember, were, correct me if I'm wrong, Neil, he pulled your TV ads. Or something.
Well, this was like right when Homesick came out. So like that was the tour that was like the first US tour. It was the Sweet Brag tour we did with Devil Wears Prada. So like Homesick was just coming out, and we're like hoping for all this momentum happening around Homesick and like all this stuff. And that photo happened. And I just remember like, I was like next to Josh when Tony called him, and you just hear like, Josh was like holding the phone over here, and this dude's just like yelling so loud. And we're like, we don't even know what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean we didn't do anything about the Escalade getting towed? What do you mean we didn't stop it? I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And like, we were like, what? But I guess he thought that we didn't stop the vehicle from getting towed, and we just thought it was funny, and we were like giving thumbs up as it was like getting towed.
There was also an issue where like Prada had turned Victory down for something and then did this thing, and Tony was mad at that. Yeah, it's a long story, but anyway, that's how I met Matt, and Matt's an amazing dude, and I think he's one of the best people I've ever met now, and I feel bad that was my first impression on him, because I think he is one of the best, hardest workers ever.
Matt's amazing.
Good on you for bringing him to Atticus.
I didn't know that story. That is funny. There's a couple instances I can go back between that and the Taking Back Sunday one and a few other ones, but when that kind of shit hits, it fucking hits the fan.
Oh my God. It's like, he wasn't going to handle it like it was the end of the world every time, no matter what was happening. That was the biggest disrespect. It was all about respect. That's all I can say.
Hey, there's something to be learned there. I do agree with him on that one, as much as I disagree with his reactions. It is all about respect in this industry.
I'm going to be real. He was an insanely smart human being. Like, you have to be to run a label of that level for as long as he did, as successful as he was. But obviously some questionable business practices. I mean, but.
All right. Well, and on that note.
You tiptoe so good.
and on that note, we do have a few quick Patreon questions, which I think you'll be the best person to answer because, I told people, hey, we have a guy coming on. His name's Mark, and he works in the merch kind of area of touring, and that's all right.
I got all the time you need for me.
Okay, so maybe in this day and age, it might be different than what my experience is based on it, but Dennis wants to know that what's the best kind of way to reach out to an artist and get your designs used for merch in this day and age. How does a designer do that anymore?
Interesting. I wouldn't reach out to the artist at all, to be honest, especially if they're of any size. We have people. I probably get 4 or 5 a week of new artists from around the world that want to pitch us stuff. One, hopefully it's good. That's the first. I mean, we've had a lot of people send some really great stuff, and I'll send it over to my Sean in my art department and say, hey, hit this kid up. I mean, this stuff is awesome. If you're going very specific for a specific artist, look at what either their management or their merch company is. And those are the people you're going to want to reach out to. Now, it might not be as easy to find the right person at the merch company, as I'm sure most managers are listed to some degree. We have a general form, and honestly, ever since the company started and I was doing customer service, my email floats out there pretty easily. But, if you have some designs and you send them over, I'll be honest, don't write a huge email. I ain't going to read it.
Yeah.
It's just, if it's, hey, I want to do some art for you. I have some examples here and they're in there, that's going to be the quickest thing. Yeah. I mean, to be honest, and I think any merch company is like this, and this is before we even get to retail. Once retail comes in, it's different, but we just absolutely devour art. We have 5 people in-house. We have about 4 freelance that we regularly use, and we have some animators and things like that. And I mean, we're always looking for more. So whether you're looking specifically to work with one artist because you really want to do their merch, fine. Otherwise, if you're just looking, make a nice PDF portfolio. Don't go crazy with EPK kind of stuff. It's just like music. Your art's going to speak for itself, and if the design is sick, someone will probably reach out.
You don't
That's
make
great
them
advice.
come out and do like a showcase in a dark room with their stuff on a PowerPoint. They have to stay in there on stage.
We're gonna set up Photoshop on the stage and project your screen up there. And
15 minutes, design something amazing.
I'll do this this sounds great, actually. Can I be a part of this when it happens? Even
This
if
could be a
it's
TV show right now, a great design off.
Better buy the URL right now, because you got Mark and me in the room, and we both love businesses and ideas. So
the Great British Design Off. It's like kind of like the Bake Off, but it's just like more art focused.
it's got like the Google domain
and
name
British.
app,
Yeah, and
just
British.
like purchased already.
British.
All right, cool. Well, that was our question. Thank you for coming on, Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Thanks for your time.
This is fun. Thanks for having me. Honestly, it's almost more exciting just to be able to catch up with 2 friends I haven't talked to in fucking forever. So I mean, it's been great, and I appreciate it.
I think that I need to do a better job of keeping in touch with, like, hey, they'd be a cool guest on the podcast. Hey, I should probably just keep in touch with them better as well. Like,
Hey, they're a great person. I really wonder what they're doing.
with touring, I see usually tour related people like once a year.
That's
but
the
without
thing
it,
is, like, I'm used to touring and you like run into random people and you're like, oh, we get to catch up. This is great. And then it's like, ever since touring went away, it's just like, I don't know anyone. It's
or
like,
Mark gets a cool job that doesn't involve touring anymore and
yeah,
don't see him. Yeah, it's
I
your
make it
fault.
out to a few shows a year. Okay.
we're going to have some, hey, I will say this, Mark, there's no exclusive, but we're going to have shows before the end of the year. And hopefully we'll be in LA and we can hang out and come and just like stand in the corner. We'll have someone ask you who you are. And then when you say I'm motherfucking Mark Bubb, and then we're going to like all shoot off party poppers. And then we're going to be like, that was a prank. We got you, Mark. Let's go. And then we're just going to have fun from then on. It's going to be great.
I love it. I think you guys are doing some of the Wimmer festivals they announced, and I'll be doing those too. So
yeah,
we'll be able to catch up on the East Coast.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, wait.
We'll bring Adam.
Yeah, I'll come hang. I don't. Yeah, can I come on tour? We'll just shoot a podcast that day, Neil. Wait, Neil, hit him with the good question.
So when you did tour, did you use shower shoes or not?
Is this like an official question?
Yeah,
I mean, it's something we really like to know about our guests, and I think it says like even deeper about who they are as a person. Those types of questions.
On Warped Tour, I did.
Oh God, yeah.
Well, it depends. What you mean shower shoes, like flip flops.
Flip flops in
I
the
had
shower.
flip flops. I used flip flops on Warped Tour, and this is gonna sound bougie, but all the other touring I did, I got hotels. So,
Hey,
so
I respect that.
One way or another, whether it was paid for by Tony or it's just the other tours I was doing. All right, thanks for having me, Kevin. Take it away, bro.